Every year, thousands of people take on massive debt to earn an MBA, while corporations spend billions hiring elite consulting firms. They pay for a specific vocabulary, words like synergy, core competencies, and flat organizations. The premise justifying all this spending is that management is a rigorous, objective science. The idea is that with the right frameworks and analytical tools, a trained expert can parachute into any business and mathematically engineer a solution. But the track record of these experts is surprisingly poor. Major consulting firms frequently rack up millions in fees, advising companies that ultimately go bankrupt. They prop up failing business models and celebrate faddish ideas right up until the collapse, walking away largely unaccountable. To figure out why modern consulting often feels so disconnected from actual results, we have to go back to 1899. That is when a man holding a stopwatch decided to measure human laborers as if they were moving parts in a machine. The multi-billion-dollar discipline of management theory functions as a series of quasi-religious narratives, a collection of case studies and parables designed to justify the authority of the people who tell them. During the late 19th century, massive movements of labor shifted from agriculture to industry. At the Bethlehem steel plant in 1899, managers oversaw an industrial yard covering several square miles, filled with laborers manually moving heavy materials. Frederick Winslow Taylor was a former engineer on contract with Bethlehem Steel. He believed he could eliminate waste by proving that the best management was a true science, resting on clearly defined laws. Watching the laborers, Taylor posed a highly specific question. Exactly how many tons of heavy 92-pound iron bars could a single worker load onto a rail car in the course of a standard workday? He selected a group of physically powerful workers and offered them double wages to participate in an experiment. Eager to impress, the men worked at maximum capacity while Taylor timed them. They loaded 16.5 tons in just under 14 minutes. This chart shows how Taylor extrapolated his data. He took that single 14-minute sprint of extreme physical exertion and applied it to a grueling 10-hour shift. Based on this math, he demanded that the daily worker quota jump from a baseline of 12.5 tons all the way up to 47.5 tons. Taylor knew humans needed bathroom breaks, lunch, and rest, so he arbitrarily reduced his initial calculation. The entire foundation of his new quota relied on a 40% adjustment, a massive, unscientific guess disguised as objective data. Despite this lack of reproducibility, Harvard University based its first graduate business degree on Taylor's writings in 1908. It institutionalized his core philosophy, a strict divide between brain and brawn, where workers supply the muscle, and a separate, highly educated class supplies the thinking. What came to be known as scientific management lacked actual scientific rigor. It was a fabricated mathematical framework used to justify demanding quadruple the physical labor for only a modest bump in wages. Treating humans exactly like machine parts naturally led to worker resentment and strikes. In the 1920s, corporate theory swung in the opposite direction, toward a humanist approach, popularized by a Harvard researcher named Elton Mayo. Mayo was brought in to analyze a study at a telephone component factory. Researchers had been manipulating the overhead lighting above a group of female assembly workers to see how physical conditions affected their productivity. The initial data was completely contradictory. Productivity went up when they turned the lights up. It also went up when they turned the lights down. Output increased when they gave the workers frequent breaks, and it stayed high even when they took those breaks away. Mayo concluded that the physical environment was irrelevant. He argued that the women produced more simply because the experiment itself made them feel special. In his view, they had formed a spontaneous team, working harder because they felt they were participating freely. A closer look at the methodology reveals major flaws. During the experiment, researchers quietly removed 2 workers they considered uncooperative and replaced them with friendlier subjects. More importantly, the women who remained were paid significantly higher wages for participating. Mayo dismissed the wage increases. His celebrated theory of workplace teamwork functioned as a subtler form of bureaucratic control, aiming to harness an employee's personal sense of identity and well-being directly to the goals of the corporation. For the last century, corporate management theory has essentially been an endless loop. It swings from the strict, rational efficiency of Frederick Taylor to the interpersonal, mandated teamwork of Elton Mayo, and then back again. When companies announce business process reengineering, they are applying Taylor's stopwatch logic to digital workflows to find the same mechanical efficiency. When they pivot to flat organizations, they are reviving Mayo's 1920s focus on social cohesion to make workers feel like a team. The vocabulary changes, but the underlying drive for control remains identical. Neither the rationalist approach nor the humanist approach operates as a true science. They do not produce falsifiable propositions or consistently reproducible results. They are, at their core, ongoing philosophical debates about reason, passion, and how to manage power dynamics among human beings. Because these theories lack empirical backing, they function as a shield for management. By dressing business decisions in the language of science and mathematical models, managers can enforce difficult changes, like increasing workloads or replacing staff, while appearing to follow neutral, objective standards that no one can argue with. This focus on neutral expertise explains why elite MBA programs emphasize networking over specific scientific training. The degree acts as a high-cost barrier to entry, ensuring the management class is composed of individuals with the same pedigree and social capital, regardless of the results they produce in the real world. If you want to understand how people actually work, what motivates them, and how they handle adversity, humanity has spent thousands of years documenting it. The dilemmas faced by modern managers have been thoroughly explored in classic philosophy, literature, and history. You do not need a six-figure degree or a shelf full of repetitive business books to grasp human nature. You only need to recognize the timeless historical realities of how people wield power and how they choose to cooperate.